All right. Welcome, school board members. This is ASB's chat with Senator Arthur Orr, who is chairman of the Senate Finance and Taxation Education Committee. And familiar to many of you, particularly if you're from Madison, Morgan, or Limestone County, is your local legislator. Well, but many of you probably don't realize is Senator Orr actually has the same role as you do in one capacity. He is chairman of the Alabama School for Cyber Technology and Engineering. In fact, it was the driving force behind establishing that school. But when he's not working on state budgets and in the state house, he is working as executive vice president for Cook's Pest Control, and also works on some real estate development. Something you also may not know about Senator Orr is that he is a former U.S. Peace Corps volunteer and also worked as a staff attorney for Habitat for Humanity's International Office, and of course continues to be very active in community activities. Senator Orr, welcome to the webinar, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you, Sally, and I hope your voice lasts for the endurance
or maybe
of
not.
this program.
Well, I made it through a board meeting and a conference this weekend, so I promise you it sounds worse than it really is. So obviously the key issue on everyone's mind right now is the education budget. So can you share with our members, what is your timeline for the budget in the Senate?
Yes, right now we're looking at having the budget in committee and on the floor next week. So the goal is to have it out of the Senate by the break, the 1 week break that we've scheduled for the week of March 22nd.
Okay, well, and there looks like there's pretty good news on the budget, even with the pandemic. There's a significant amount of new money to spend in this budget. So can you tell us a little bit about our revenue outlook, how we got that nice pool of money and what we see looking down the future?
Yeah, so as you know, we were conservative last year when the pandemic hit, and we only had, I think, overall increase of about $90 million year over year for 20 to 21. As far as what I see, coming forward, we do have more revenues. I'm not speaking for Chairman Poole, but based on our conversations, we're guardedly optimistic, and I want to emphasize guardedly because we do not want to overreach or get ourselves into trouble if we have a relapse or shutdowns or whatever. So I think between the two of us, we feel more comfortable kind of crawling along as opposed to getting up and sprinting and making sure we're getting out of this situation. We also know, the newest federal bill that's now in the House after the Senate passed it for concurrence tomorrow. And lots more money will be coming down from Washington all across, for higher ed, of course, K-12 and community colleges. So we'll see that, increase in federal funds come, and then local government, state government getting additional resources. And so we really don't have a handle on how that may impact matters. I know the fiscal office is trying to watch it as closely and determine kind of where we're settling. I even got emails over the weekend when the Senate passed their version about what this means, but the details are not as clear as you would think they would be as far as what it'll mean on the ground for your superintendents and school boards, et cetera, here in Alabama. But it is more money there is more money on the way, and that's something that we want to consider when we craft the budgets. We know things like after school sessions and summer schools to catch students up that were in virtual classes for much of the year. Though there is going to be money for that, and so we want to be strategic with our state dollars if there's going to be a lot of federal dollars, but we don't need to leave school boards and superintendents holding the bag, so to speak. We need to make sure they've got enough to do what they need to do, because I think we can all predict it's going to be a busy summer catching up.
Looks like having a bit of a lag.
Well, looks like we lost a little bit of audio from our end. There's a little bit of a lag there, but I'm getting the sense that, conservative has worked well for us in the past, so going forward, that makes sense. And of course, related to that is when we get a audio back is to look at AFT funds too. That's part of the conservative budgeting has allowed us to have that reservoir. So would you see holding some of that back perhaps?
Again, based on Chairman Poole's and my conversations, I would see us holding some of that back because we are not expected to reach the cap next year, or the end of this year. So that would mean, really, if we spend all the A&T money, there wouldn't be any in the next year. So we think we better just step it down and hold some of it back, so that we can have some in the summer of 2022 and be guaranteed of that. Otherwise, if we blew it out now when you have all the federal money, even though the federal money is multi-year money, we still may regret blowing it all out and having nothing come 2022 next summer. So we'll hold it back for insurance and for a cushion.
All right, well, there's a lot of priorities, of course, different requests for that new money. One of the things we're hearing is a teacher pay raise. What do you think is reasonable in that realm?
Well, Governor Ivey, as you know, recommended a 2% pay raise. I've certainly been hearing from those educators that would like to see it go north. What right now we have on the drawing board is looking at raising the salary matrix for those middle years. I think these step raises where you're looking at 1.2%, 1.4%, it varies in those middle years, but that's just not enough of a step raise to make much of a difference. So our game plan right now is to try to increase that. We will increase that, but then continue to increase those middle years so we can continue to attract educators and not lose them after year 10 when they're vested with a retirement, and then they bug out because they don't see a lot of hope for wage increase and wage improvement. So that's one area of focus. Another area of focus is working with the State Department for STEM teachers. How can we apply enough money to really attract science and math, computer science, et cetera, type teachers to the classroom? We're competing against the private sector. Very, very difficult for your superintendents to hire people that are qualified with those degrees and get them into the classroom. And as y'all, your school board members know, we're woefully understaffed as far as credentialed teachers in this space in the classrooms across the state. And so we need, again, it's the old put your money where your mouth is. And we're going to have to compete against the private sector, and we're going to have to pay people more. It may cause some angst across the spectrum of, oh, why are you paying this science teacher or math teacher more than the English teacher? Well, it's supply and demand, and we've got to get credentialed teachers into the classroom. Having well-intentioned people who aren't trained, who don't have the degrees or the certifications to be teaching these STEM type classes, we're just going to have to get them there. One final thing, if we can, we are looking at perhaps another professional development day, if we can get the funding, and this comes at the recommendation of some state school board members, that would be a good thing. We certainly need to increase or improve the quality, but that would be more money in educators' pockets as well. So at the end of the day, I think we're going to have a good year. There is a lot of focus on compensation. The OCE number in the budget is quite substantial. So it's hopefully a good budget year across the board.
All those sounding encouraging, a little bit different, plowing new ground, but we're going to have to change some things if we're going to address some of those needs. So that's exciting. Now, Many of the things you detailed will certainly help us attract and retain teachers. But as you know, the education community is very interested in seeing some adjustments to the retirement system to be able to, again, be competitive with other states. So, the House has been more supportive in the past. The Senate has some different issues. So you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah. So I'm going to just call it Tier 3, even though it's Tier 3 2.0 or whatever. It's a little bit changed from what we have seen in the past. As you know, in the Senate, Senator Albritton sponsored a resolution that is now in the House to have a compensation commission come together, representing educators, state employees, even the judiciary, and get all the numbers on the table. Because here's the problem, and I'm going to speak to your board members as employers, since they are school board members, and they're more on the management or employment side. But the problem is in the legislature, and they may see this at the local level. Different groups run to us and they say, well, we're not, our retirement is inferior to Georgia's, and oh, we're losing teachers to Georgia. Well, but if you put healthcare, for example, compare our healthcare benefit to Georgia's, we kick their bulldog tails when it comes to healthcare. And then when you look at compensation, we're right in there with them. And the same goes for the other contiguous states. So we need to put all these things on the table, look at the whole package of the three-legged stool, look at the healthcare, look at the retirement, and look at the salaries, and where do we fall with everybody. And if we're deficient in one particular area, terribly deficient, then absolutely we need to make changes. And the same for state employees and the judiciary. But what happens is that, like I said, they find, there's one area that they see, oh, we're deficient against Georgia. Well, our retirement, and if you go to the SREB website, you'll see a dashboard that compares all the southern states, the southeastern states in the SREB region. And if you'll take note, Alabama is roughly, I'm going to say, in the middle third, at the top end of the middle third. So we're not the top, but we're certainly not at the bottom or scraping the bottom as we are in so many other categories. And you can also, I don't think it applies so much, but you can also take in cost of living. Our cost of living is not as high as, say, Virginia's or Maryland, which is a SREB state. So you've got to look at some of those variables as well. But we need to stay competitive. We need to give our employers, your school board members, the tools or the dollars to make education an attractive career, not lose them across the state for those border counties, and even in recruiting in the schools of ed. We've got to, give them the bullets of the three-legged stool to show that Alabama is competitive, and we want to keep them and retain them, and to retire here eventually. And they're not making a lousy financial system by putting their roots down in an Alabama public school.
Okay, so what's the time frame on the commission? When do you see it having some answers, and when some of those issues might be able to be addressed?
The time frame in the resolution is to have it all ironed out and finished and complete by, I believe it's January 1 of 22. So it's not going to drag on, because really, Sally, all we got to do is get the numbers. Like this SREB for education is a perfect kind of website, and I've already downloaded the information, and LFO has packaged it up. But it shows a very telling story when it comes to educator compensation across the Southeast, and that's our peer region. It's not New York, and it's not California. It's here in the Southeast, and more importantly, our contiguous states. Ones that we could lose educators to, particularly for those border counties. So we'll be done and ready for the session next year. Now, I have been talking to Senator Chastain about some kind of modification and going ahead and looking at these sick days when it comes to retirement, and being able to calculate those, because it makes no sense that we're having to double up when Ms. Jones wants to go to the beach because she hadn't used her sick days. It's use them or, or lose them. And so now we've got to pay out of local funds for a substitute teacher to replace Ms. Jones. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So, that's something I think that's a no-brainer, even though it does cost us some money. We need to go ahead and put that to rest, and I would like to go ahead and move forward this year on something like that.
Well, certainly that would be very helpful, particularly in a teacher shortage where it's hard even to find the substitutes to do that. All right, let's shift gears a little and talk about some of the other needs in the non-personnel needs in the education budget, although I guess it's personnel related. And let me start off by thanking you. You were very helpful last year. We were working very keenly on addressing some of our cybersecurity issues. Obviously, in your position of cyber technology and engineering school, that is a key area of concern. And of course, we've seen some school systems have security breaches because of the immense shift to virtual. It has increased the devices, increased our risk. And so last year you helped us get the 2.5 supplemental for training, and that's ongoing. We're able to get 2 years out of that, so we appreciate it. The next ask, though, is to get a network administrator for each school system. Some thoughts about that or issues for school boards to look at in terms of cybersecurity support from the state?
Yeah, I can't recall the dollar sign on that, Sally. I've heard about it, but I haven't seen a true cost for the cybersecurity or network technology coordinator or whatever in each LEA.
It's about 10 million, total last just under 10 million. It would be about 68,000 per system, as an average.
I find it hard to believe we can find somebody, for that amount of money, but for each system. But that's certainly something we're willing to look at. If you can shoot me the info on that, I'd be glad to look at it for sure.
Thank you very much. We will do that. And again, this came from a cybersecurity task force of educators looking at the needs, but the needs have come up. Well, another issue near and dear to you is the SSUT. You took the issue into your own hands with the Morgan County legislation, but that is something of keen interest to us in the education community. Would you like to talk a little bit more about how you see us addressing that issue on the state level?
Well, here, let me be frank and candid with your school board members. I think a statewide bill would be a heavy lift. I think that's a tough thing to make happen in a general bill. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but I think the better model, assuming the Supreme Court rules as we think they should, which is to allow via a local bill that each county can determine what it would want to do. Each delegation, legislative delegation, can determine how it wants to spend those SSUT dollars coming in. Do they want to give them to education? In my home county of Morgan, traditionally, these sales taxes had been collected by the county and distributed across the 3 systems that we have here locally. And when the SSUT came, the bricks and mortar kind of flatline, slow growth, but the SSUT has taken off, as I'm sure it has in most parts of the state. And so the schools saw, it's really coming at their expense, and because they aren't getting those tax dollars, those sales tax dollars anymore. So I would advocate just for more assurance, a sure thing would be, assuming the Supreme Court allows us to do it and upholds the law that has been passed, to effectuate this on a local level, county by county, trying to get these sales tax dollars back into the school systems.
Well, as you well know, you were there. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments last week. How did you think it went for your side?
Well, hopefully, Sally, it's our side.
Well, exactly. It is our side. I was there too. We're friends of the court.
So based on what the lawyers who argued the case and their feedback from our perspective, they felt very encouraged by the questions that were asked by the justices. They were encouraged certainly by our arguments, and in their opinion, the lack thereof or nothing new from the other side. So we'll just have to see. I hope that the bill is upheld or the law is upheld. And again, I would encourage these other school systems who are seeing the bricks and mortar flatline or not slow growth and the internet sales just taking off. If they had that already on their books, to certainly visit that issue after a ruling from the Supreme Court.
Oh, absolutely. We've discussed this previously, and we're looking at that study too, because there certainly you have to drive down one street. You can see that some of the big stores are closing as if it shifts to online. So that's a big issue. So, all right, folks, you heard it, go local if that's the case. All right, you mentioned earlier and just wanted to get a sense of where the legislature was thinking about the infusion of the federal money coming in. The federal government has provided a lot of COVID relief, in particular education to specific purposes. How is the legislature going to balance that with what it wants to do in the upcoming education budgets this year and next year?
Yeah, Sally, it's really difficult because what I know Chairman Poole and I don't want to do is assume, oh, they'll have federal dollars for that. Move on, let's not fund that. They'll get federal money and we move on, and needs don't get addressed because the federal dollars never materialized in the manner that we thought, or there are all sorts of strings attached to those federal dollars, and our local systems can't really access them like we may have thought one day in the legislature. So we just need to be careful on our end not to make any decisions unless we are absolutely certain, and it's very clear that the federal dollars will be forthcoming. There is no string or conditions, or there are no conditions attached that are going to preclude schools from being able to use those funds. And how much hand sanitizer can you buy after a point? So we don't want to look at the dollars. We've got to look at the language and the strings that could be attached, and make sure that the needs are being addressed at the local level.
Okay. Well, one of the big issues we hear that's coming up this week is the state lottery and gaming. Any impact on public education, from our standpoint that you can see coming out of that debate?
Yes, but I'm not. I had a conversation this morning with Senator Marsh on that very issue. I don't feel at liberty to discuss what he's been discussing. Perhaps if you get it from another source, that's fine, and you can blast it out. But yes, there could be some implications for education, and quite frankly, trying to analyze those at this very moment through the Legislative Fiscal Office. So just you need to go find out what's going on, because
Well,
it could be significant.
well, we pick it up. We'll continue to do that. All right. We've talked a lot about budget and other issues. Any non-education issues on your agenda or things you'd like to talk to school board members about?
Nothing comes to mind. I didn't know I'd have the opportunity, so I didn't try to prepare to lecture your good members, or give them a heads up about something. Let me just thank them for the job that they do. Of course, you've got a great team in Montgomery that's watching all the sausage be made, as unpleasant and not very pretty or attractive as that is. But they do a good job for you. But thank you for your service to our state and to our students here in Alabama. We are, I know the legislature many times has a negative reputation that catches a lot of grief. But I do find that by and large across the board, and I hope Sally and her team would back this up, there are a lot of well-intentioned and well-meaning legislators that do want our public schools to succeed and to thrive and prosper, and like we all do. And that's the same. We are mutual in our goals. We've just got to improve. The test scores, the national NAEP scores, et cetera. And with COVID, that's going to retard our ability to grow and improve even more. But we'll certainly do all we can. And if I personally can ever be of assistance, if you need to send me an email or get in touch with me or give me an idea or a thought, we're always open to that. So thank you again for your service. And Sally, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk with you this afternoon.
No, thank you for the time. I think your comments were right on point, and we appreciate your willingness to share that. We want our board members to be engaged in the process, and you always have a ready ear when we come to you, so we appreciate that greatly. Have a good afternoon, Senator.
All right. Thank you. God bless.